Hello, everyone. Estania Caputo here with Valence Fitness. Boy, are we getting on in the week. So I'm really enjoying doing this show. And after yesterday's promotion on KHON Channel 2 News that I was doing this, I'm hoping that this is really going to take off and people are going to tune in to listen to stories about adversity and how we are able to reframe our thinking if we didn't think in a positive way in the first place, and then rethink things through and try and work through whatever it is in a positive way. So every week on Valence Fitness, this is about being fit mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, even socially with one another and intimately with one another, especially now with this COVID thing where we're slowly getting out of this quarantine situation. We still are sort of on top of each other. We want to be sure that we are able to, hold on, I'm going to let someone in here. We are able to, where was I going with this? Be able to work with each other and stay on an intimate level with one another and not kill each other. So today, every week I've had a different guest telling us a story about what they felt was a story of adversity and how they dealt with it. And this week, I have someone special out of Texas. It seems like I've had someone out of different states every week, which has been really, really nice. It's nice to have a voice coming from across the nation. So today, how was I going to explain this to you? I love to talk about character. And we always want to know about someone's character. It tells us a lot about a person when we first meet them. And one of the things, that I asked my particular guest who is coming on, what is it, if you were to describe yourself, what would you be an example of? And she said that she is an example of what was meant to be broken down only made her stronger. Wow. So that's a very, very heavy statement. I don't want this whole show to be heavy. What it is, it's going to be a serious conversation about some serious things, because life is not always, a bowl of cherries. It's always, there are things that happen in our lives that we have to deal with. And so my guest that's coming aboard, she survived. She survived over 24 years, consecutive years of abuse. And she was told, and I even had someone ask me, well, why didn't she tell somebody? Well, there are situations where you don't feel confident enough, or you've been told enough times that no one's going to believe you. Or maybe there's shame, or maybe there's a situation where you have family members who, don't want you to do that, or you might lose family members, or whatever the case may be. I want my guest to explain to us what her story is and how she dealt with these situations. I want to tell you, though, what she has also done since this all happened. I'm going to introduce you to Dr. Wanda McKinley. Now, she is the founder and CEO of We Are Survivors, which is an international 501c3 nonprofit organization for not just women, but also abused men and children. She also has the McKinley Consulting Firm. And I like that too. She actually uses her skills in psychology as a behavioral modification strategist to help individuals to reframe their thinking, to move forward in life. I do believe I've also put this out on social media. She's a best-selling author. I haven't read her book, I have to be honest with you. So I might have to go ahead and pick that up because I just got introduced to her a couple of weeks ago. She's a recipient of the International Humanitarian Award, and in 2016, the Advocate of the Year for Domestic Violence. She is a speaker. I love that. I love that she's going around and telling her story. She's been to Finland and to Africa. She has also received, and now this is special, she's received an honorary doctorate degree in social advocacy just this year due to her work here in the States and also internationally. So I am so pleased to introduce you to my guest, Dr. Wanda McKinley.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing spectacular. I'm so glad that you were able to join us today and that you agreed to share your story with us. I think it's really important that you have a voice, you know, and that you are able to speak for others. And that's what's really important. I'm so glad to know you, because it does take of a lot of strength to be able to do that. Yeah. So we didn't really exactly go into the exact story you were going to share with us. I just assumed there was so much to choose from that you were going to go ahead and start us off and let us know what you would really like to share with the audience, so that way they can take something from this and apply it to their own lives.
Well, wow. The abuse started, I say, as early as the age of 6, because we all know when when a traumatic experience happens in your life, that time and that moment is date stamped. And so for me, I was 6 years old when my mother walked in on my biological father on top of me. So from the age of 6 to 12 and a half, 13, I was molested. By the age of 13, my stepfather raped me while my little brother and my little sister slept in the next bedroom. There's 2.5 years difference between me and my sister, and 8 years between me and my brother. And then my biological father told me that he wanted to be my first, and also raped me when I was 13, not knowing that my stepfather had already raped me. So my stepfather and my father raped me from the age of 13 till I was 18. I met my ex-husband when I was 18 going on 19. And from the age of 18 to the age of 31, I was in an abusive relationship with him, from him raping me, from him busting my eardrum, spending, when I received my paycheck, I had to cash in and give him all of my money. So I would have to ask to even buy a pack of gum. It was the bringing the women over, staying the night in our home. So I went through all of this to the age of 31. My why for leaving was my daughter. Me and my ex-husband have a daughter that's 27 years old. And I didn't want her to grow up thinking that that was the normal way for a man to treat you. And what people don't understand is abuse is a learned behavior, and it is a pattern. It is a generational curse. And if someone doesn't take the initiative to break that curse, it's going to repeat, because what an abuser and a victim sees as normal, the kids in the family, they think, well, mommy's allowed it, daddy's doing it, then it must be okay.
Must be okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And when they don't see anything different, when they're not introduced to a more positive environment, that's what they learn. That's where it's picked up. And I knew when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was 4 months pregnant when I first met my in-laws. And I knew then I was in for it, because his dad said something to her and she started hitting him upside the head. Like, I was just like, oh my God. So it's something that's learned. And unfortunately, there's not enough adults that listen. My mom walked in on my father, but my mom's a stay-at-home mom. My father's in the military. So where was she going to go? What was she going to do?
So it was that fear of not being able to take care of herself or to take care of you.
Right.
You had siblings. And
yes, at the time it was, yes. At the time when she walked in on him the first time, it was just me and my sister. And like I said, I was in elementary school. So I was 6 and a half. She was 4. Where was she going to go?
Right. So,
and my grandmother knew, his mom knew.
So do you feel that this was a generational thing even with your parents?
I believe so. And my mother lost her mom when she was 14, head-on collision by a drunk driver. So I think my mother she never had that nurture that comes from a mom. You know, she never really was able to tune into that. So my mom, instead of being the mother that I needed her to be, she was a survivor for herself. And as I began to tell my story, my mother's story started coming out. My father was abusing my mom. I had no idea. As kids, we had absolutely no idea. So for my mother, she was always in survival mode. And unfortunately, I was the sacrifice for a lot of that.
Okay. So was this something that you actually discussed, or it just was taboo? It was something that just was expected.
Oh, it was never discussed. My stepfather, I think my mom just kind of like blocked it out, because my stepfather told my mother that he didn't want to marry her. He wanted to marry me. My mother still married him. My mother didn't even acknowledge that he said what he said.
So she saw the signs. She saw the signs were there. Yeah.
Of course. Because it was one time he gave me money for her birthday, and I hugged him and walked out. I was on the way to the front door. I was excited, getting ready to go to the store. I was in junior high. And my mother jumped on my back and started beating me. I had no clue why. Come to find out that he got an erection from me hugging him. I had no clue. But instead of her addressing him, it was my fault. I did it. This is the second time I'm going through this with you. So my mother thought it was me, and not looking at the men that she chose to be in her life.
Mm-hmm. So I have to ask you, did you know back then that it was wrong? Did your gut tell you it was wrong?
I didn't realize it was wrong until I was literally about 15 or 16 years old. Because first of all, I was, as they say, molded. Like when you have the young girls that are sex trafficking, and they do what they have to do to survive. But for me, because that's all I knew was this touching, the sex, I didn't realize it was wrong until I became old enough to really start wanting to talk and date boys my age. And I didn't understand why I received so much resistance from my stepfather and my father. And I actually started talking to my grandmother, because like I said, my grandmother knew from way back then, and she would do what she could to protect me. But when I would talk to her, she would then inform me of what was right and what was wrong. But at the time, I didn't know that it was wrong, because that's all I knew.
So was there a sense of like relief that you knew now, or were you angry? What happened now? So now you're 15, you have a better sense of what we consider right and wrong in society. Where does that leave you? Were you feeling lost? What was going on?
This is going to be an answer that somebody is going to be blown away. But
Okay.
for me, I felt like I had the upper hand, because here's the thing. I knew that, because of the way I was trained and the way I was brought up, that if I use my body, I can get whatever I want. My father would always tell me I should never be broke, because I have between my legs what every man wants. My biological father did not teach me how to tie my shoes. He taught me how to use my little girl to get what I want. So when that was discussed to me in more detail about appropriate age, what was going on, what was inappropriate, then I thought to myself, oh, so if I continue to allow these grown men to have sex with me, then I can get a car, which I had at 13 and couldn't drive it. I can spend money. I can go on shop. When I speak at schools, I tell the young girls, these videos that they see with these video vixens and the shopping sprees, that was me. I would go in the mall and literally have people help me with my bags. So I just knew if I used my body at a young age, I could get whatever I want. So for me, the clarification was, if you're going to rape me, if you're going to use my body for your good, then I'm going to get something out of it. And that's how I was able to make sense at the time of what was happening to me.
Okay.
Instead of being, I didn't become angry and mad until like now, till my adult years. And I was just like, whoa, wait a minute. That really happened to me. And when you go through traumatic things, your mind is a powerful thing. It is so powerful. So a lot of it was blocked. The hurt, the anger, the confusion, all of that, I didn't feel it. I was like a shell. I was numb until now. Until now people hear me talk about it. Till now I'm crying. Till now I'm angry. Till now I'm beyond angry. I'm pissed. How dare you? How
So
dare you?
was it more like a denial during those years of how you really should be? You know, was that part of it? Were you feeling this? Because then you had to feel something.
Right. So denial could be in there, but it's one thing about victims. When we're in it, we can psychologically remove ourselves. Some of us remove ourselves. You've heard of cases where people say, I've literally was floating above my body, like I had an out of body experience. There are so many times when I can see my abuser having sex with me because I'm literally having an out of body experience. It is really hard to explain to someone who hasn't had to deal with something as traumatic as being raped. Not just for being raped by someone who's supposed to love and protect you.
Yes.
So for me, there are so many blocks in my childhood. I don't remember. I can't, and I don't care how much I try. For right now, my mind won't open those file cabinets.
So it's not really denial. It was just blocks, blocks of time. I could see that. Obviously I'm going to say, I cannot relate. I haven't been in that situation, but I wanted you here because I know that there are many people across the world that can relate. We can relate on different levels. There have been things that happen in people's lives, and even in my own, where I can relate to some things you may talk about, but that particular thing, not exactly. So I am I really want to hear this. This is really important, and to understand, because a lot of times when I think about things, I thought differently. I thought, oh, there must have been so much shame involved, and you just felt like, oh, you couldn't share. But no, not the case. It's not the same for everyone. Not everything, nothing's cookie cutter. Right. But it sounds like people deal with things, especially in that kind of situation, where you need to, for survival, to block some of those feelings and thoughts out. Right. So you're at a place now, you're in your teens. Now, when did you meet your husband? We
were 18 years old.
18,
19
so,
now. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you're being very open. So I need to know, was he involved in that world at all? Or how did you stumble upon someone? Did you see that it was the same type of character? What attracted you? Because you did mention that he went through years of abuse with him too.
Actually, I wasn't attracted to him at all. It was a sex thing. See, that goes back to what I know, and that's all I knew. I used to have this running thing that I had an ATM machine, and so with him, my mom introduced us. We worked together, and I used to always say, "Mom, he's not my type." But he's 6'5". So my mom was like, well, they said about tall men. So it was more of a sex thing. And so we became very active sexual partners. And then I became pregnant. And then it was more like, okay, I'm pregnant. Now what? So it wasn't like someone I sought after. We dated, we started liking each other, and then he turned into this monster. We literally were young, and we're just having sex when and wherever, got pregnant, and now we're in the situation where he's taking care of his responsibility. So that would not have been someone that I would have sought out to date. So
the marriage came because you thought it was the right thing to do?
We got married when our baby was 4. So we went through our ups and downs. We actually broke up in between that time. And then our thing was, okay, let's just really try and work on this. because we do have a child. And I know how it felt to come from a broken home. My mom and dad was married and divorced 3 times to each
Whoa.
other. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Try and try again.
To eat, yes. So I knew how it felt to come from a broken home, and I didn't want my child to have to go through what I went through. But unfortunately, that didn't turn out that way, because I did leave her father when she was in elementary. So
Okay. So, okay. Yeah. Because you mentioned that she was 27, but so you were married for how long? And then what was that pivotal moment? What happened what was the switch?
Let's see, we got married when we turned 24. So we were together from 18 to we got married at 24, and then I filed for my divorce at 31. And I had just, as a victim of abuse, you reach a point where you're tired, okay? And sometimes we don't have enough oomph for ourselves. And especially for me, because to me, unfortunately, the abuse was normal for me. That's all I knew. And I tell people, because people look at me like, but why would you allow yourself to go through that? It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank. None of that matters.
Now, was it the same type of abuse that you were experiencing when you were younger? I mean, was it just a sexual abuse, or was it verbal? Was it, beatings? What was it? And why, because when you think of the children, when you think about your child and your situation, is it something that is hidden, or is it something that is completely out in the open? If a husband is physically being abusive in front of the child, or if this is just going on in the bedroom when the kid is not home, or, you know what I mean? It's important that the audience sort of understands, the varying levels of abuse, and what people think that they can tolerate and what they think is okay to go through to a certain point. When is it enough? When is it enough?
Well, in my situation, it was never out in the open. Never. Our family and friends thought we had the perfect life. We were 24 years old. I bought my first home. We had several luxury cars. We worked. We went on vacation every year. And we're talking about at 24. So to everybody else, and we had a cute little girl and Girl Scouts, and she was a little cheerleader, and an A honor roll student when she was in school. So to the outside world, we was like, wow, role models. But my husband, he would never hit me where you would see bruises. So he would hit me upside my head, like he would bust my eardrum. Well, you can't see that. I can feel it. I know what happened, but the outside world, my doctor knew, because that's how I knew my eardrum was busted, because I had to go to the doctor. He would rape me. A lot of women don't understand, even if you're married, if you say no, no means no.
Yeah, no means no. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And my husband would come home high and drunk from being out partying, and my no went unheard. There were times he would sit, and mind you, I said he's 6'5". I'm 5'5". And at the time then, I was like 135, 140 pounds. So he would sit on my chest and pin my arms down, and he would choke me until I would barely pass out, and then release, and then do it again. So it was torture that would go on behind closed doors. It would be the verbal, the financial. It would, of course, be the physical. It was sexual. He was so controlling. He would actually come home and touch the hood of the car to see if the hood was hot of the car.
Now, you mentioned earlier when your mom didn't leave, she couldn't take care of herself. That was part of why she stayed. Now, you just mentioned financial. So I have to ask, was that a big reason, or were you doing things on your own and you just stayed because of your child? What was it that kept you from leaving or dealing with the situation?
The financial piece, no, because everything was being taken care of. Like I said, we owned what we owned, and we didn't go without. For me, once again, it was all I knew. So I had to step outside of my comfort zone, out of my box, out of my way, and step out of my way to look at this little girl that I'm raising. Mm-hmm. To say, okay, even though as parents we think we hide and keep a lot of stuff from our kids, I found out that's not really the case.
They know, they see,
they know,
mm-hmm.
They know. So I had to make a choice. Am I going to raise a child that's going to be okay with her husband staying out all night, with her husband bringing home STDs, with her husband treating her and talking to her any kind of way? Do I want to raise a young lady that's going to be okay with that? And the answer to that was no. So I couldn't leave for me, but I could leave for her. And so she's my why. My daughter was my reasoning for saying enough is enough. I'm going to break this cycle. My mom was abused and abused me. My father was abusive. He doesn't even know who his father is. So where he picked up that trait, I have no idea. Maybe from my grandfather that we don't even know who he is. So I just wanted to break it and just stop it. And so I was willing to walk away from everything to save my daughter.
Mm-hmm. Did you get a lot of resistance?
Well, here's the thing, and this is what I teach in our when we have our support group meetings, when I talk to women, you have to have a plan of action. Because a lot of times what happens is women, yes, we do live on a spur of the moment. That moment, we're out, grab something, we're gone, but we wind up coming back. Because we didn't plan, you didn't set aside money, you don't have a place to go, you don't. So for me, I put a plan in action. Now, did I tell him I was leaving him? I did. He told me I was crazy, but I'm leaving. I'm letting you know I'm going to leave you. So I went and got me an apartment. I set aside some money, and it was his niece graduated from high school in St. Louis. So I said I had to work and I couldn't go. That was my out. So while he and our daughter was out of town, I moved her bedroom set, her clothes. I moved my clothes in the washing machine and dryer. I left everything else in the house, and I left. So when they came back into town, I got my child, and they were outside unpacking cars. I just got my child, got in the car, and I drove off. He had no clue until he walked in the house. I was gone.
How old was she at the time?
Oh, she was about 9. She's about 9.
And you spoke to her about it prior to?
I did tell her not to go into detail about what I was planning to do, but she knew we were moving because she also had a cell phone at the time. So I was telling her, I wanted her to call me, like, please let me know when you and daddy get here. Please let me know when you and daddy get, closer to the house, so that when they pulled up, I was ready to get in my car with her and leave. And that's what happened. So she knew, but it didn't really hit her until it was done, until we got to the apartment and the nights passed and her dad wasn't there and she was missing her father. So we went through that part of her life, but she was aware. I didn't keep it from her.
Okay. I do have a question about, this is a different type of strength. So you're determined to do what you do. How are you supported in your actions? Meaning, okay, you're about to take your child and you're going to get into a car and you're about to drive away. Did you have a posse? Did you have support? Did you have people that were on the sidelines there that are saying, yes, we cheer you on, we're here for you, or come here, we're at this house if you need us? Or what is it? What could you rely on besides yourself?
I actually only had a friend. No one knew what was going on in my house. I kept it a secret. So they knew my husband was a cheater. I mean, they knew that part, but to the depth of what was going on in my home, nobody knew.
And
So
why is that? I'm just curious to know, like, is there some shame in it, or is it that you just don't feel it's anybody's business? Just because if we're telling the story to the public, and there are people that, you know, you have way more experience in this, you know, dealing with people in this situation, but all the things that come up in my mind, just fresh things, is, okay, so if I have somebody who's listening right now, what are they going to do? What are some ways that they can go about this and feel comfortable?
okay. Well, what I would say now, as far as not telling, I was young, because if I was in a situation of that right now, I would do it totally different. People would know. I would talk. People around me, my family and friends would know. Um, so even with me being saying that about shame, I don't think at the time it was shame. It was just me not knowing. Like, and you have to realize too, because of me being younger and going through abuse and saying something and nothing changed.
Yeah.
No one removed me from that person. I was still in the house with my father, and so nothing changed. So if it didn't change when I was younger, what difference does it make now that I'm older? So because of not getting help at a younger age, it's just, to me, it was just part of life. So I just kind of settled into being that victim that's never received help before. So why would I receive help now? And my mother now recently just told me she knew. Well, if you knew, why didn't you help me? So it's like it's things like that, why people a lot of times don't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it to themselves. But right now, that's my thing, is trying to educate women and men to say, hey, this is happening to me. You're not alone.
You're not
And
alone.
yeah, there's things out there and people and places that can help, that can really help. But I mean, at the time in my 20s, to me, it was just like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm gonna do something different. And I just left.
So you left and things changed. Like, you never went back.
Never went back.
Never went back. How did you feel? Were you feeling lost? Were you feeling like relieved? What were the emotions? What are emotions that some people could go through?
Honestly, I missed our family being together. And I would think, did I make the right decision? And that's why a lot of victims stay, because it is our normal. It's a horrible normal, but it's our normal. And so having to go through, now you have to reprogram yourself, rethink how you do things. You have to now be that individual in which was snatched away, because when you're in an abusive situation, you're torn down. Like, you're like a robot, because you're doing what you were told to do, and you better not do anything outside the norm. So for me, I was relieved for my child. All of my energy, all of my thoughts, all of my movements was channeled through my child. It wasn't me, because like I said, I didn't love myself enough to leave.
Mm-hmm.
I had to love.
Did you see the change in your child then?
She went through anger. Well, as an adult now, yes. As that child, no, because she was mad at me. She didn't understand.
Sure.
All she knew is my mom and dad not together no more. So she was angry. She was, to me, depressed. She cried a lot. She would listen to sad dad songs. Like, it was just, and yeah. So for me, that tore me down more, but she didn't understand why her mommy had to do it. Like, why is this going on? Because she's learned now. She's held me and she's crying. She's like, Mommy, now I understand so much. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't tell her that at that age, because I didn't want, she's a daddy's girl. And I'm not that woman that's going to pour out my grief on my child to make you see your father in a different light. That's not, because he didn't treat her that way. He treated me that way. So, yeah.
So it was the right thing to do? And do you believe that your daughter is stronger because of it? Did you break that cycle?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I even tell her to this day, when her and her boyfriend get into it, or something is said or done that makes her uncomfortable, she actually comes and talks to me. That, and I called her when just recently and got really emotional, because I told her I really do appreciate that. I really do feel that my decisions back then made a huge impact on her today, because she is open about her relationship. And if something makes her uncomfortable, she will call and talk to her mom. And I am so glad that I'm in a position to be that listening ear and not be judgmental, and just listen and allow her to talk things out. We even have family meetings when he's involved, and we have conversations. And it's always best to hear both sides of the story, because everyone perceives different situations, same situation differently. So yes, she's wonderful.
That's good. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
And, is there relationship after this, like a compatible kind of, civil relationship that you have? Can you have that with an ex? Is that possible?
Our relationship, me and my ex-husband, we're great right now. We co-grandparent.
Okay.
We co-grandparent. He went to counseling.
Okay.
And has apologized for a whole lot.
Oh, wow.
So he's manned up, owned up to the things that he did. Of course, some of his explanations for some of the things he did still, to me, doesn't settle, and I'm able to express that to him, and we're able to agree to disagree. But today, we are in a much better space than we've ever been since we were 18 years old. So I think with the therapy, it's really helped him.
Do you feel that it helped heal by having those apologies happen? I mean, I'm suspecting that not everyone's going to have that kind of response. Oh, yes, I did those things to you and I'm sorry. It's important for people to know that they have to heal themselves. Yes?
Yes, because of my many abusers, he is the only one that has apologized. And I have to say, yes, it was like a release. And I have explained to him that some of my decisions that I've made, some of my actions, were actually based in waiting on that apology. And I didn't know it until I got it. I didn't know how important it was to hear that.
Was it like a validation kind of thing? I mean,
yeah. And I didn't know that I needed it. I didn't know. I didn't know that I'm sorry I did this to you was going to release some things in me. And it did. My stepfather is the abuser that says I asked for it. Like, my eyes told him that I wanted him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was 13.
Yeah.
And he's also the person that still finds a way to reach out to me and still tells me he loves me, and still tells me he has the panties that I wore the night he raped me. So I deal with that abuser. It's my abusers and their mindsets. My father denies it. My stepfather embraces it like it's a normal relationship, and my ex-husband apologized for it.
Yeah, so everyone is different. There are levels of understanding, and it reminds me of something I wrote last year. Apologizing to someone is for them, but owning what you did is for you.
Right.
And your husband did just that, I think. Gave you what was needed for you, but owning it is a big part of his own healing and moving forward. So,
yes.
and I'm happy to hear that. And I'm happy that you guys co-parent, co-grandparent. How old is your grandchild or grandchildren?
She's 11 months.
11 months. That's so great.
Yes.
Wonderful. So your daughter's married with children, or okay.
No.
Just have a child. Okay.
Just has one child.
That's wonderful.
They're together, but they're not. They've been together since junior high, so I don't know what they're waiting on.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I've heard some great relationships starting. My cousin, oh my gosh, she was with her husband since 15. They're close to 50 now. And he actually had a major accident where he became a quadriplegic, and they are more in love, and he dotes on her more than anyone I know. And it is such a beautiful love story. You know, it's one for the books, that's for sure. So, you know, sometimes they can start real young. That's for sure. But, you know, I want to get to the part now. You know, a lot of times I have people on here, I want to hear the story of adversity and how you know, reframe your thinking and move forward. But you've taken this and moved with it, and you're creating an organization or creating a foundation for people to reach out to, and that you can offer your services to. I want to hear a little bit, if you could just give us a brief on that. And I want to know about these workbooks. I want to know, you know, you're coming up with these concepts that are to help others, and tell us about that, and then how they're going to be able to reach out to you. Because I'm assuming there are no boundaries. Just because you are where you are, you know, the state that you're in doesn't mean that you can't get a call from another state, you know, another town. And I want people to know how to feel comfortable and at ease to reach out to you and your
Not a problem. Well, We Are Survivors, and actually, to make a very long story short, is faith-based. God told me to be transparent and tell my story. Mm-hmm. And because honestly, if I hadn't heard God tell me, no one would even know I existed. Because it's just something that we just keep to ourselves, a lot of survivors. So We Are Survivors, I'm showing people that, yes, I've gone through all of these adversities. I've gone through this trauma. I've gone through all of these horrible things, but it didn't break me. I'm still here, and I'm stronger. And why I'm stronger is because God has given me the strength to speak for those that cannot speak. There are a lot of victims and survivors. It doesn't matter what you say. It just doesn't matter. They cannot speak because it's traumatic and it hurts. There are many times when I'm speaking and I'm crying. So We Are Survivors, I've had the privilege of actually traveling to Finland and Africa to speak to women as well there, to let them know, because in Africa, it's man, what goes on over there is it's just unmanageable of what the women go through over there. So it's important that we let them know that there are avenues and there are people that will listen to them. People think no one hears them. So We Are Survivors, we have platforms. Of course, we're on the site. We'll have websites, www.wearesurvivorsfoundation.org. We're also on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, Twitter, and it's We Are Survivors Foundation, or just We Are Survivors. You have Dr. Wanda McKinley. And for me, what I've done with the McKinley Consulting Firm is because when you've gone through some traumatic things in your life, we walk behind a wall of defense. Mm-hmm. And I am extremely guilty of that. I've learned it's slowly coming down, but if I think like you're getting ready to attack me, I'm going to attack you back. And a lot of times it's not like it's intentional. It's just my defense mechanism. It's me going into survival mode immediately, because unfortunately for me, the two people that God gives you to protect and nourish you are the two people that hurt me the most. So if my parents will hurt me, I don't know if you will or will not, but I'm not going to give you the opportunity. Mm-hmm. So McKinley Consulting Firm, it kind of helps people actually with the cognitive behavior, whether we think. It focuses on turning the negative thoughts into positive thoughts. So you have a negative process, and we focus on how to try and turn that negative process into something positive.
Sounds right up my alley. I love that.
Because here's the thing, everything we go through in life, there's a lesson to be learned.
Yes, absolutely.
And we have to learn that. We have to try and see what we can learn from that lesson.
Mm-hmm.
We may not learn it at that moment, but it's something for us to be learned, something for us to grow from. It may be a good growth, it may be a painful growth, but we're supposed to grow from different things and events that happen in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so at McKinley Consulting Firm, we focus on that. We focus on making that person a better person and not doing the suicidal ideologies that people think of. I can't make it, I can't do it anymore. So the first thing they think about is suicide. Well, no, let's reprogram the way we think. Mm-hmm. We have workbooks. We have one right now called We Are Survivors Visual Empowerment Journal. So this journal has 60 original motivational quotes. And because everyone learns differently and actually retains information differently, the journal, you can either write in it, or you can draw, or do, I like to do like the vision boards.
Mm-hmm.
So you can cut and paste your pictures. So the book allows you to not only write or you can draw and then interpret your drawing. Because a lot of people express themselves differently than others. Some people prefer to draw. I work in a psychiatric hospital, and journaling is the #1 coping skill. Mm-hmm. But for those that don't want to journal, they draw. And I've seen some beautiful pictures that these patients have drawn out of all the emotions that they're going through. So the We Are Survivors Visual Empowerment Journal can be found on Amazon. I'm available 24 hours at 214-966-5152. That's for the McKinley Consulting Firm. We do Zoom sessions as well. Now that's probably going to be the way of life, the new norm.
Yeah,
COVID.
Got to get used to this. I mean, I was doing training for years, through Skype and FaceTime. And then when this hit, it's like, oh my gosh, I got to amp it up. I mean, this is how everyone's going to be doing things nowadays. But yes. I look at things sometimes as blessings. And there are a lot of relatives I wasn't very close with anymore, moving mm-hmm. from the mainland to Hawaii. And I was able to reconnect. So I always look for the positive things.
Right.
And that's why I was so grateful to have been introduced to you. And because I trust people that, actually it was just on, there's another woman who has this site, and she had posted the other day, when do you know when to trust? It's really interesting because you mentioned Christian based, it's I have to be honest with you, every guest that I've had so far has a relationship with God.
Yes.
And I think it's a beautiful thing. That's my opinion, and I stand by that. But one of the things was there, how do you know when to trust? And there was such a very varied response. And honestly, what I said is I open my arms to everyone from the very beginning. Different circumstances bring out different things, but
right.
It does make you way more vulnerable to put yourself out there and to trust right away. But for me, it's my way. I look at it as Jesus didn't judge and say, I'm not going to trust you yet, and I'll see. He trusted you right away to follow him. And so I trust in others to walk that righteous path with me. And should they, stumble over a few rocks, if they get back up and start walking with me, that's fantastic. If not, I might be walking along without you a little bit. But, it's really nice to be drawn and be introduced to individuals such as yourself who can share their stories, such strength and willingness to bear themselves, which I think that's exactly what Jesus did. He bore himself to the world, to the people, and made himself very vulnerable so that there is a trust factor. I do what I do because I believe it is our job in society to make people feel comfortable and at ease.
Right.
And I think that is exactly what We Are Survivors sounds like it's doing with you at the helm. So I really appreciate you coming on here today. And I wish you all the best moving forward. And even if we reach 1, 2, 3 people, even watching any of the recordings, that's what this is all about.
That's it. And my thing is, what God placed on my heart was, if I've touched one person, I've done my job.
You have, sister. Well, thank you, Dr. McKinley,
Thank
for
you.
coming. And I hope to be in touch with you in the future.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to reading your book and looking out for other things that you are going to be bringing to the communities.
Absolutely. And I thank you so much for having me on your show. It was such an honor.
You're going to have to come out to Hawaii sometime and we'll do it in person.
You know what? That is on my to-do list. So we need to have a women's conference and come out there and heal some lives as we enjoy Hawaii.
Yes, that sounds like a plan. Okay, well, thank you. And thank you everyone for tuning in to Valence Fitness for this week. I am taking I'm taking the 4th of July weekend off, but we will be back the following weekend. So thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.